I went around to the street to make sure they knew that we were doing this now. Am I on your way in?
Good afternoon, folks. Come on in. It's time for some talk about Jimmy, James, Eddie, Frisky, Dad, Grandpa. He had lots of names. Come on in.
I wonder if they can hear you. Can it be heard back there?
Thank you so much for coming to celebrate the life of my father, James Edward Burnette. My mother appreciates everyone coming. Thank you so much. He touched so many people over the years in so many ways. I've heard that the last few days. What a great guy. As many of you know, he's from New York City, born in New York City. Soon thereafter, his mother, my Nana, couldn't stand the rats in the apartment, so she moved to Woodside, Queens. He's the second of 6 kids, a tough childhood. He lost his dad when he was 9. My Nana raised this family in a 2-bedroom apartment in Woodside, Queens. An apartment that she had until who knows when. I think 7 of my cousins lived there over the years with my Nana in this tiny little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, tiny little kitchen apartment. I don't know how she did it. Somehow she did it. Dad was a very good student and he excelled in track and field. He would tell stories of how he was great with track, and the big turning point in his life was when he enlisted in the Marines in 1962. He calls that the turning point in his life. Getting through basic training, he learned to motivate himself, make himself better. He knew that becoming a Marine would change his life, and it certainly did. He called it a stepping stone, the Marines. He called the second stepping stone meeting Norma on the streets of Woodside. More about that love story later. Stay tuned.
More to come later.
So, he's the few, the proud. He's a Marine, very proud. One of the first things we talked about in this book, shout out to Lauren and Kristen. Lauren audio taped my father in 2013, hours and hours of audio about his life. This is all the stories I'm going to tell you are from those recordings. It was transcribed in 2018 with help from Kristen, and this is a book we've made. It's amazing. What material. Without that book, I wouldn't know most of these stories. Pretty amazing. So, let's go to Taiwan, Pingtung City. Dad, this is all in the book. He worked in the financial department of the Marines. He paid the troops. He was very popular. He talks about a weekend liberty. 30 guys, 30 Marines were able to fly to Taipei for a night in a hotel and a good time. Whoa! 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they're going to, so they got on a military transport. They got to Taipei, had a great time. The next day, the plane didn't show up. These guys spent all their money that night. You can imagine what these guys might have done in Taipei. So, my dad went down to the bar next to the hotel. He was speaking to the guy at the bar who owned it. He said, "Can you go get me some cigarettes in the PX?" Dad says, "Okay." He's going to pay him for it. So Dad walks 45 minutes to the PX, literally. Gets to the PX, has 2 cartons of cigarettes, goes up to the cabin, and they say, "You need a commissary card." He said, "What's that?" "You got to go to the military police and ask them for a commissary card." He had no idea. So he says in this book, this is his first sales experience. He knew how to become a salesman after this particular situation. So he goes to the military police and says, "Me and 30 guys are stranded at the hotel. The plane didn't come back. I need to bring the guys back some beer." So he said, "I'm going to bring the guys back beer," and the military police gave him a commissary card. He goes back to the PX. He buys the cigarettes and some beer, walks 45 minutes back to the hotel. He's the hero of the day. He sells the cigarettes to the owner of the bar for $10 and he has money for the day. His first sales experience. Little did he know, it's kind of putting cigarettes on the black market. So he says he felt guilty about it after that event, but he got his money and these guys were very appreciative. There was a sergeant on that trip. And they got back to the base the next day, and the sergeant said, "Can you pay me early for the next pay period?" Now, everyone knows when it's payday at a military military base and they go to buy things off the base, the price goes up. So he gave this guy his pay 2 days before he was supposed to get it. The sergeant said, if ever you need anything, let me know in the future. This will be important soon. So let's fast forward to Atsugi, Japan. He was stationed in Atsugi, Japan for 13 months. Interesting. Still in the financial department. But one of his duties was to drive a Jeep. He didn't have a license. Little did he know. And in a second, you'll learn another problem. So he goes to the motor pool. Guess who's running the motor pool? That sergeant. He goes to the sergeant. He goes, listen, I need a license for the Jeep. No problem. Goes to the back room, gives him a license. Here's the keys to the Jeep. He gets in the Jeep. It's a stick shift. He can't drive stick. He doesn't know how to drive stick. So, the Jeep is on an incline. He's got to back out and get onto the street. There are guys inside the office betting quarters how many times he's going to stall the car. He finally makes it out, brings the Jeep. He became a very proficient stick shift driver. Side note, when I was 15 years old in the town of Washington, we had a huge backyard the size of a football field. We took the 1972 green Chevy Vega, one of the worst cars ever produced, in the backyard, and I learned how to drive stick with my father in the backyard. Great memory. And I've driven stick ever since. One of his other duties was occasionally he was on call the weekend to guard the money. Literally, he had to wear a pistol on his pocket and guard the money. So he's there one weekend, guarding the money, pistol in the pocket, and this guy walks by with a sweater. He goes, I know that sweater. All of a sudden, 30 minutes later, the guy comes back. He comes to the door, knocks, looks him in the eye and says, you could know a guy named Burnette around here? Side note, when my dad went into the Marines, he weighed 120 pounds. Right now, he weighs 170 pounds. This guy, looking him in the eye, was Robert O'Malley, his best friend from Woodside, Queens. He says, Bobby, it's me. And Bobby says, you fat. Great story, great story. Didn't recognize him. Look at him in the eye. So anyway, so Bobby O'Malley, a Marine, was doing some cold weather training in right outside of Mount Fuji. So he had a little belief. He found his best friend, and they said, let's call Danny O'Malley. Danny O'Malley is here today, another Marine. Danny O'Malley, where is he? Shout out to Danny O'Malley. So, these young boys want to get in some trouble, I think. So Danny flies in from his base, which is 1,000 miles away, meets these two guys. They're going to spend some time near Mount Fuji. So, the first night, Dad had to get back to the barracks. The story goes that Danny O'Malley was a military police officer at the base Atsugi at some point and knew all the locals because he worked at the gates. This is what the book says. Okay, I'm making this up, Danny. Okay, so Danny knew some girl, and so Dad says in the book, I had to go back to the barracks. Bobby and Danny broke into the house of a girl they knew from Japan and spent the night. It's in the book. So, day number 2, they take a train to Mount Fuji, have a great time. Danny knows some girls. They met with some girls, as Dad puts it in his book, and that night was very intriguing. But I'll tell that in the future to the right crowd. Okay, so the boys had a great time. Best friend, Danny, Bobby, everyone had a great time. And from that day, when he sent Bobby O'Malley back to do his cold weather training, Bobby went to Vietnam. Robert O'Malley was the first Marine to win the Congressional Medal of Honor in the Vietnam War. Wow. A real hero. Amazing. My dad did not see him again until April of '66 when Bobby went back to New York. Okay. So that is basically his Marine experience. There's other stories, but I thought these were poignant and fun. He had a great time in the Marines, you can imagine. So Dad made the rank of sergeant in March of 1966. He was discharged in June of 1966. Back to Woodside, here we go. What does he do? He finds Robert O'Malley and the guys, Marines, and they like to hang out at a bar called the White House. So he's walking with Bobby, and outside the bar, this girl named Norma and her girlfriends like to hang out at the White House. So he met Norma.
We weren't there though. We were across the street when we lived.
He was across the street. Anyway, Bobby introduced Norma to Jim. I guess it was love at first sight. This is somewhere around June, July of 66. Before you know it, they're married in March of 67, and there's a baby boy in late August of 67, my brother Jimmy. I come under 12 months later in early August of 68. They made fast work of that. They must have been in love, baby. So Dad leaves the Marines. He's got to find a job. He did work bartending at the White House, but he also got a job at this place called ABC in the billing department. Started in the billing department, it was $95 a week. So for extra money, he worked on nights and weekends at the White House bar. So Dad quickly figures out, financially from ABC, he found out what people made in the company. He says, well, those sales guys make a lot of money, so his goal was to get into sales. But first he went to planning, where people plan how to put commercials and programs. He did a lot of planning. His first big thing, he reports in the book, he did the planning of the commercials for the first Monday Night Football game in August of 1971. That was pretty cool. The first Monday Night Football game. He put the commercials in the right spots. He then went to an ad agency for a couple of years, came back to ABC, mid-70s, and was doing planning for most of the prime time. Now, this is 1975. Okay, this is ABC. Are you ready? Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Charlie's Angels. Oh my God. Oh, Welcome Back, Kotter. All these amazing programs. They were #1, and he had to put the commercials into the program. It was great. Side note, Dad would occasionally take me or Jim into the city to spend a day at work. I remember going in one day, I must have been 10, 11, 12, and I was able to meet Arnold Horshack from, oh my God, Arnold Horshack. Do you know Vinny Barbarino? I remember that as a kid. I met Arnold. So we'd go into work, the coffee car would come, Dad would get his roll and jelly donuts, he'd be dunking that in the coffee. Oh, it was a great thing. That's a one side thing. Okay. So Dad works his way up in ABC. Eventually, he worked for ABC Sports. I remember as a kid, they went to the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. Great memory there, okay? And eventually, he gets to NBC, which is very important. I think my most memories are from the NBC days. He went to the NBC in the fall of 1982. He said they welcomed me with open arms. One of his first assignments was to go to the World Series. That's how he started his job at NBC. Amazing, great stuff. Here we go, this is big. 1983 was his first French Open in Wimbledon. And for the next about 10 years, this lovely couple every summer went to the French Open for a couple of weeks, followed by Wimbledon for a couple of weeks. Side note, we'd have various babysitters during this time frame. My favorite was my Nana. My Nana Burnette would come and she'd cook this, I guess it was spaghetti. She'd cook spaghetti, she'd crumb cake, she'd pull tea bags out of her wrists. And as the years went on, and my brother and I became teenagers, you know, Nana was there, but she wasn't a great supervisor. I'd be upstairs doing my homework, practicing my trombone, and Jim would invite the boys over for a keg party in the backyard. Ignorance is bliss. I don't know if my parents ever knew that, but we would have keg parties in the backyard, and then we'd be there rocking on the chair, drinking her tea, her coffee. And she loved playing the French records of Charles Aznavour. She put these French records on all day long, over and over. Please stop. Anyway, those are some great memories. Dad left NBC in around 1992 for short-time work for a company called Dorna. Dorna owned the signage you would see rotating on the NBA sidelines. And I believe he was able to position that behind home plate. You start to see those rotating signs at home plate. So he stayed there for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden, Fox got the NFL. This is 1993 into 4. So in December of 1993, there was a party at the house. And one of the important people that came was John Nesbitt in the industry. And John had spoken to David Hill, and David Hill said, John, we need a guy to head the sales department up. Who are we going to find? John's like, I got it. David's like, no, you got to look at the names I have. John's like, no, I got the right guy. And David goes, look at this guy named Jimmy Burnette. John goes, I got it. So John comes to the party. You're looking for someone for sales. He kind of played it down. He played my dad really good because he knew he wanted him, but he didn't really show that. He had his cards up his sleeve. So Dad said he was interested. John goes, I'll look into it. And he went back. I'm sure he was very happy. And all of a sudden, he's hired for Fox Sports in December 1993, starting in 1994. And what a wonderful time he had at Fox. All the different sport avenues, his influence on the whole game. My mom and him went to great places. Another wonderful decade. His retirement was in 2007. Now let's get to the most important story of the day. The Danny Boy story. How did he start singing Danny Boy? Let's rewind. NBC days. It's Wimbledon, 1987. Anheuser-Busch had a bunch of guys go to what's called the Irish Derby, big horse race. And they just started sponsoring these guys, right? So they're over at the Irish Derby. They call over to the NBC guys and say, hey, we'd like to come over with Mike Rory and a bunch of famous people, and we want some tickets to tennis. And so my dad was able to give them 13 tickets. They all had a great time. In appreciation, Mike Rory and the Anheuser-Busch guys wanted to have a nice little dinner for them, all the NBC guys. Grant Tinker was there. It was big wigs, all there. And in the entourage with Mike Rory are guys like Jack Buck, Lou Rawls, Gene Autry, Donald O'Connor, John Forsythe, and Stan Musial.
Yes.
These are big names. So, at this big party, Mike Rory brings in a harpist. Everyone's getting up on stage and doing different things, entertaining the crowd. So my dad is sitting there and thinking, I gotta do something. There's a guy next to him named Art Pepin. Art Pepin was a Budweiser distributor deal, owner in Tampa, Florida. So he says to Art, you know the words to Danny Boy? And Art goes, okay. Art writes the words to Danny Boy on a napkin. First verse. So the festivities are closing, and my dad stands up and says, hey Mike, I'd like to reciprocate on behalf of NBC and sing Danny Boy. And Norm was thinking, what? So, Dad gets up on stage, he's going to sing Danny Boy, and Jack Buck, a famous announcer from St. Louis, says, Jim, can I lead you into it? Dad thinks, what do you mean? Oh, sure, Jack has no idea what he's talking about. So Jack gets up there, and this is the whole Danny Boy story. So Danny's going off to war, and his father's down by the fire in his favorite chair, blankets are over him. He's lost 2 sons in the war, and he's thinking, what's going to happen to my son if he goes off to war and doesn't come back? That's the whole lead into Danny Boy. Right? So Dad nails it. Everyone goes wild. And from that day forward, when Mike Rory had the big Anheuser-Busch party in the city, he would get a 3-piece band and have my dad come every time and sing Danny Boy, so Mike could do the lead-in that Jack Buck did. From there, it turned into every party he would go to, he would be asked to sing Danny Boy. And that became a tradition here at Sleepy Hollow at the Headless Horseman. My dad was asked to sing this amazing song every time. My dad didn't realize till a year later there was a second verse. Sang the first, I had no idea the second verse. But eventually, it caught on. Can you imagine this guy in a room with these famous people had the courage on a napkin to take that up there and sing in front of these, it just blows my mind. And from there, it caught fire. So, I'm thinking, maybe I can channel Dad today and try and do that myself. I've never sung before. So,
Oh, shoot.
here it goes.
Oh, really?
Oh, Danny Boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. It's you must go and I abide. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh Danny Boy, I love you so. Once again, thank you so much. My dad loved all of you. He touched so many people. I'm sure we did him very proud today. Thank you very much. On that note, I'd like to invite up my daughter, Kristen.
Well, you just sing it.
I'd like Kristen to please come up and do both verses.
Okay.
Oh, you did so much. Thank you very much.
Danny boy, oh Danny boy, I love you so. And when I'm gone and all the flowers are dying, and I am dead, as dead I will maybe, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me. And I shall hear, though soft you tread above me, and all my grave will warmer, sweeter be, and you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to
Wonderful, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now, if my children are ready to come up for one more ensemble, all the grandkids, just the grandkids, all the grandkids, come on up. We call it the Van Trapp family. Come on up, Van Trapp. Come on up. Here we go.
Steal my heart and hold my tongue. I feel my time has come. Let me in, unlock the door. I've never felt this way before. Wheels just keep on turning. The drummer begins to drum. I don't know which way I'm going. I don't know which way I've come. Hold my hand inside your hands. I need someone who understands. I need someone who hears. For you I've waited all these years. For you I'd wait till kingdom come. Until my day is done. And say you'll come and set me free. Just say you'll wait for me. In your tears and in your blood, in your fire and in your flood, I hear you laugh, I hear you sing. I wouldn't change a single thing. The wheels just keep on turning. The drummers begins to drum. I don't know which way I'm going. I don't know which way I've come. For
like to invite anyone down, open mic, who want to say something about my dad, a funny story, you name it, feel free to come on up, say a few words.
Uh-oh, coming in.
Coors Light with ice. Oh, Danny boy. Appreciate the effort. Thank goodness. So the first thing I need to do is read you a note from Joanne Ross. Joanne was the head of ad sales for CBS Paramount. I don't even know what the title is anymore. But she couldn't make it. So she asked me to read this, and here we go. Jim was a media titan. His charisma, combined with his knack for storytelling, captivated our hearts and minds, leaving an indelible mark on the industry he cherished. I will always remember the twinkle in his eyes, the distinctive laughter, and his love for a good pint of beer, or Coors Light in this case. Always on ice. All of us fondly recall Jim singing Danny Boy, his voice full of passion, and our eyes brimming with tears. Amidst his passions, his devotion to Norma and his family knew no bounds. The love he shared with them was beautiful, a true reflection of the joy that radiated from Jim that we all knew and loved. As we bid farewell to our dear friend, let's celebrate his love, his laughter, his unwavering friendship to many of us today. Rest easy, dear Jim. You will remain forever in my heart.
That was so beautiful.
A couple of things about Jim.
You look like Jim right now, searching through your pockets.
One of which I will never forgive him for. But he convinced me to go to Detroit. You think being a single guy in Detroit in November through April is an easy thing. It's cloudy every day. There's about a half an inch of snow every morning that greets you to the car. Not enough to wear boots, just enough to ruin, a good couple of pairs of shoes. But I came back, I got in the car, I left before I was supposed to leave, and everything worked itself out. I worked for Jimmy for many years. And we used to go to the finest of restaurants. When Keith Turner and I were working for Jimmy, we would go to probably the best restaurant in New York City, called the Pig and Whistle. We had a big expense account. Jimmy had a really big expense account, but we would go to the Pig and Whistle. Turner, what do you eat every day?
Tuna fish sandwich and 2 Coors Lights on ice. Every day.
We solve the media world's problems. Probably two or 3 days a week. A lot of media hotshots in this room. Jimmy had an impact on all of us. Very positive. We had presidents of media sales, heads of media sales, presidents of NBC sports divisions. Everybody did pretty well. We're all grateful for that. But I sent out a text to a group to let everybody know what was going on. And I got one back that was particularly interesting. So I'm going to read it now. Jimmy will be missed. He gave me a big break in the media sales business and taught me a ton. When I asked to be an account executive, he told me when I was your age, I brought bologna sandwiches to work.
Right.
So I brought bologna sandwiches to work. And I never liked bologna. So I told you, a lot of success stories in this room, and he's not here, but that's a guy by the name of Peter McLaughlin.
Yes.
This is the conclusion. The conclusion is McLaughlin ended up going out to Anheuser-Busch, very successful. Then he went on to become the president of the St. Louis Blues, and from there, the president of the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to start eating a lot of bologna. And drinking Coors Lights.
He really liked bologna, I can attest to that. And peanut butter and jelly, bags of pretzels. He loved chips. That was my dad. Anyone else want to come up and say a few words, please? Go through.
Thank you. I find that it's always easier to follow Peter than it is to follow Thomas.
Danny boy.
You sent out Jimmy in an unbelievable fashion. You should be proud of your words today. And to your children, amazing what you can do up here. I just wanted to take a minute. I worked for Jimmy in the NBC days. And just two quick stories. One, first of all, he loved everybody. He loved everybody in this business. I'm up here because he loved me best. There were two quick stories. When I first got promoted to work for Jimmy in the sports department, we were flying to California, and Jimmy always had a spiral notebook, and he was always writing something in this book. So at one point I look over and I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm writing a country song. And he starts to sing it. And the people around us are going, what's the problem with this? So I say, Jim, it's great, it's terrific, good luck with it. Now fast forward a couple of weeks, and now I'm at Wimbledon with Jimmy and Norma and my wife Kathy, and we're having a nice little time, and Mike Rorty gets up and says, it's time for Jimmy to sing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is he going to sing that country song? He's going to shut his face down. And I go, Jimmy, don't do it. And he waves me off, and he steps up and just sings this unbelievable rendition to Danny Boy, and everybody in the room is crying. And I'm, thank God, he didn't sing it. One more story, and it speaks to the guy that Jimmy really was, and what I learned from Jimmy. We were in the golf business, and Callaway had invented all these new clubs, and there was a guy named Eli Callaway who was the founder, and he wanted to do business on NBC. And Jimmy said, not at that prices, we're not doing business, forget about it. So as things progress, the negotiations go on, we're in Jimmy's office, and he says, I'm not taking a dime from Callaway. I don't need their business, and I don't care if Jack Welch calls and tells me that I gotta do it. Janet, his assistant, walks in and says, Jack Welch is on the phone. So we're gonna see, okay, let's see how this tough guy does it. He picks up the phone and says, Jack, no way, baby, we're not doing it. And this is why. And he lists a number of reasons why it's bad for business, why we shouldn't do it. Jack says, Jimmy, I just bought half the company. Jimmy hangs up, looks at me and says, go do a deal with Callaway. But here's the lesson. Jimmy was not afraid of anybody or anything. And he stood up for what he believed in. And that's the things that I came away with my time with Jimmy Burnette. So thank you for letting me speak.
Oh, thank
Thank you so much. Great stuff. All right. Anyone else? Come on, Brendan.
Hi, everybody. Norma. I'll be very brief, but I have the connection between Jimmy, Danny Boy, and Sleepy Hollow. I thought I'd share it with everyone because it's a really cute story. I was honored to be the headless horseman in 2006. And like Jim, my dad, James F.X. O'Rourke, was a great Irish tenor. And I had asked my dad as part of my celebration, Dad, would you come to my celebration and sing Danny Boy? And he said, of course. My dad, like Jim, was a huge ham. And so that was not a lot of arm twisting that needed to go on. But sadly, my dad passed a month before my big day. And so I reached out to Jim, and I said, Jim, I need you to pinch hit for me. Would you do that for me? And would you do that for the club? And he said, of course I'll do that. And so in 2006, Jim came up to Sleepy Hollow as part of the Headless Horseman tradition and sang Danny Boy for the first time in that long tradition. And fast forward, the next year, Tom Wright, the next year, Mike Kenny, the next year, Mike Barrett, they all called me before the celebration and said, hey, do you think you could get Jimmy to come up here and sing Danny Boy? That was 25 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And up until 2022, Jim was asked by every succeeding Headless Horseman, even the ones who didn't know him, because they were so moved
You interested?
by his performance.
Right.
And it's been a great honor and tradition, and I feel a special connection with him over that song. And so I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come up? Gavin from Fox is on his way up. All right.
Thanks. My condolences to the Burnette family. Jimmy Burnette shows up in my dreams once every couple of years. And it's not a dream, it's a nightmare. It's my version of showing up to class unprepared to take a test. And it's always the same thing, and I never realize it's a dream. We're at 1211 6th Avenue. Jimmy's in his big office that looks out onto 6th Avenue, and I'm right outside. And he comes running out, and there's stacks and stacks and stacks of tickets. It's for a high-profile sporting event, but I can't find the one that Jimmy needs. And he's all over me about finding these tickets. And I go back and forth into his office, and I can't find them. And at the end, I always try to remind Jimmy, hey Jimmy, we've become friends. I'm not your assistant anymore. Somehow I wake up and come out of it. But the beauty about Jimmy was I started doing tickets, then I started talking to the agencies, and then I started handling our production elements with the production team. What Jimmy would do for Ben Simons and I every Friday, he'd say, come on boys, we're going to church. And he'd take us over to St. Andrews, and he'd sit down with us, and he'd walk us through all the big decisions that he made that week. And he would quiz us, and he would ask us why he did it, and we would give our answers, and he would always reprimand us for being wrong. And then he would tell us why he did it. It was a great education. For many people in this room, they learned from Jimmy. I was one of those very lucky individuals. Cut to 7 or 8 years later, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio with Rick Kloiber. Jimmy's retired from Fox Sports. We're out pulling for the Boston Red Sox to beat the Cleveland Indians. Fox Sports is staring down a terrible World Series of Colorado versus the Cleveland Indians, unless the Red Sox can get it done. So Ricky and I are on the road. We go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, expense the tickets. Nice job, Ricky. And make our way over. In the car over to the event, Ricky sells 2 Super Bowl units. Fox had the Super Bowl coming up months away. But we get to the stadium, and Cleveland is literally about to explode. When we got off the plane in the morning, the baggage handlers were all excited. The whole town is behind the Cleveland Indians, and all we want is the Boston Red Sox to win. We need the matchup. On our way in, we happen upon these 2 co-eds from John Carroll, I believe. Ricky starts chatting them up. asking if they're going to the game. They say no, they're just happy to be part of the excitement. They want to be part of the city, what's going on. Well, Ricky says, hey, would you like to go to the game? And they said, yeah, we'd love to. So Ricky grabs 2 tickets and he hands them to them. They both look at him and say, sorry, we don't have any money for the tickets. Ricky says, no, that's okay, just take the tickets. They both started crying, they couldn't believe it. They asked who those tickets are from. Ricky said they're from your friends at Fox Sports, and they're from Jimmy. Ultimately, the Red Sox won. Fox Sports was able to dodge a bullet and had a great series that year. My friend Jimmy Burnette, his legacy is obviously his beautiful family. But professionally speaking, it was the education to countless others, as mentioned previously, in this room that have had very successful media careers. Personal note, I'm no longer in media. I'm in crypto now. Sorry. Didn't work out for me. I needed something that was a little less volatile. But Jimmy's other legacy is the power of sports. And everybody in here, the NFL Network, CBS Sports, Fox Sports, NBC Sports, ESPN, ABC, we always talked about it day in and day out. It was the power of sports. Jimmy gave away tickets at every single event. He was an anonymous person that created memories for families that I'm sure they'll talk about for the rest of their lives. He gave away these memories with these tickets, and everybody watched him do it. Ricky Boy did it. Tommy Niam did it. Ben Simons does it. Everybody in this room has done it. And I think beyond the family, the legacy of educating so many professionals and anonymously creating these memories is just so outstanding. So long, old friend. Semper Fi Marine. I will always drink beer with ice when I'm watching high-profile sporting events. I'll miss you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Anyone else? Oh, John Nesbitt approaches. Remember that story? It was December of '93. John's at the Christmas party. He knows he's got Jimmy exactly where he wants him, but Jimmy doesn't know that.
I'm awfully impressed by most of the people there I worked with too, and I never knew they were that talented with the mic. I try to avoid as much as I can. I think as I think of the number of Danny Boy stories, my favorite one was we were out with a group and a group of clients, and we were in some bar down in the village, and a bunch of firemen came in. And we started, Steve McKiernan was with us, and his family were all the firemen, and we were chatting up, and Stevie was mouthing off, and there was a little push, and I said, hey, come on, let's buy him a beer. We had firemen that were our friends, you wouldn't believe, after a beer, but so we're sitting there, and we say, hey, Jimmy, come on, let's sing Danny Boy. And as we're in, there's a group of people walking in the bar, and the fireman turned around, hey, quiet, the man is singing Danny Boy. And I have to bring, I mentioned Norma last night, but David Hill, who is the founder of Fox Sports, is an Aussie who I met for the first time when we were pitching the NFL after a Sunday night game in Dallas. And David, and they kept us waiting for 3 hours, so we were not real happy, but we didn't have much choice. But so David and I got pretty friendly talking. He said, hey, I got a funny accent. These guys want to hear from me. I said, David, they want to hear somebody that's got some ideas and is going to do it. And we bonded pretty well for there, and we're going through the whole setup after we got the NFL contract, and David and I were sitting there, and David says, hey, you know, you gotta really talk, I gotta talk to you about setting up the sports sales team. I said, David, you got enough work to do on setting up the programming guys. It's not my first rodeo. The sports guys, sales you don't need to worry about. We're gonna take care of it. And he said, well, I've talked to a few people, and there's a couple names. I said, David, take care of the program, we'll do sports. He said, well, I talked to a couple of guys, and there were two names that came up regularly. I said, yeah, I know, probably, but don't worry, we're done. He said, well, at least talk to these guys. And the first name he said, Jim Burnette. I said, David, don't give me the second guy's name. I talked to him 3 days ago and told him we'd hire him. And it worked out. Anyway, we miss him, and as they say, David sends his condolences. He's actually in Australia now because an old mate of his died, and he went to Australia for the funeral.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate that work. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Last call? All right. So enjoy some more. Oh, one more. We got one more, people. Coming up. Jimmy Scanlon. My cousin, my favorite cousin. The oldest cousin of the Burnette clan. Nana's favorite boy. He's seen it all. He's been tormented and tortured, and he told me so yesterday. Jimmy Scanlon.
Yes, this is true. I am eligible for Social Security this year. Uncle Eddie. I've been to many Super Bowls with him, baseball games, and one memorable one was when Kirk Gibson hit that home run in LA. I was there, and I took two of my buddies with me. All three of us are cops, right? So here we go. Prior to that, I said, Uncle Eddie, yeah, no problem. Two buddies, yeah, no problem. So here we go. We get the NBC experience, all right? Now, we wear a blue uniform in New York City. Back then, we had the powder blue shirts. So, you know, we did all right when we went to get something to eat. You walk in back then. It's a lot different now. But the NBC experience, that's a home run. So here we go. My buddies meet Uncle Eddie. Because I didn't call him Eddie. Uncle Eddie, this is Al, and this is Tony. And Al will call him Uncle Eddie as well. So we get to the hotel, and Uncle Eddie says, you go to the hospitality and get something to eat. I figured it's just gonna be rolls or something. We go in there, they got bacon, sausage, eggs, the whole thing, right? Then we do the lunch thing, same thing. Then we go to, we were there for 2 days. We went to 2 games with Uncle Eddie. The first day, he hands us the tickets and goes, you guys are gonna be by yourself today. That's all right. So we go into the stadium, and we are sitting by the left field foul pole. Now, don't get me wrong, we were right there. But now my two buddies, who everything is free, they go, oh, this is the best he can do for us? I was like, you guys just been fed. We're in a hotel, beautiful hotel, and this is how you appreciate it? And to beat that, we get back and forth to the games with NBC buses, right? So we didn't even have to walk in transportation, and these guys are complaining. Day number 2, we go to the game, but this time the hospitality tent set out in front of the stadium. We go in there with Uncle Eddie, we're standing there, and some guy comes walking, big guy. And he goes, Jim, you have a second? So Uncle Eddie goes, what's the matter? So, you think you can get, any extra tickets? So Uncle said, I'll talk to you in a few minutes, right? So I said to Uncle Eddie, who was that guy? Because he was big.
He said, that's Ken Brett. George Brett's brother is asking Uncle Eddie for tickets. And my two friends are like, the baseball player is asking Uncle for tickets. It gets better. It gets better. So today he goes, you're going to be sitting with me. So now we're inside one of the luxury booths. We have our own bathroom. In front of us, Tom Selleck is sitting there. Right? Tom Selleck. We are eating sushi for the first time ever. We eat sushi, right? Uncle Eddie's doing something over there, and halfway through the game, he comes over and he's on a telephone. And he goes to me, here. And I'm like, hello? It was my mother. He called his sister, my mother. I speak to you. I said, well, I don't talk, man. I don't watch the baseball game. I'll call you later. Well, let me tell you. I got out of the police department in 1984. It was very good back then. All right, we went in $2 for a sandwich or something like that. When we used to call it on the arm. Well, that NBC experience that my two friends had on the arm, it was the best thing we ever did. All right. Now, more importantly, that's the Uncle Eddie on the business side. More importantly is Uncle Eddie on the family side. Aunt Norma called me in early August and said that Uncle Eddie wasn't doing that well. So I said, all right, when I get back, I'll get my mom and we'll round up and get his two sisters, including my mother, and Uncle John will get everybody here. Unfortunately, Aunt Irene's in North Carolina. So we would come up, and I guess the first time I came up was in September. Right? And my mom, who's at the age now, she really doesn't want to leave. She loves her dog. She doesn't want to leave her dog. Even to get her out of the house, she won't wait. Mom, I gotta stay here and take care of Mom, right? So I take her up here the first time, right? Now, my mom and I, we talk almost daily. And it's talk, that show like with Seinfeld, about nothing, the show about nothing. Well, this is about the conversation about nothing. All right? Although we do laugh a lot. All right? But the one thing she always say, now, if you ask Mom, come, you want to stay with me for 2 days? No. If you want to go here, even ask my brothers and sisters, she doesn't want to leave. From that moment on, I want to see my brother. Can you get me up to see my brother? And we did quite often. And then we got Aunt Helen, Mary, Uncle Mike, Uncle John, and Aunt Mary. Like I said, unfortunately, Aunt Irene couldn't come up here. So, out of all the things I've done with Uncle, I've been to 4 Super Bowls with Uncle Eddie as well, just to throw in there, because I'm a Buffalo Bills fan.
Thank
Please,
you.
take it easy. No, it's not. I've seen all 4 losses. And the last one, I was actually sitting right next to Eddie. The first time I sat right next to him, we watched it together. But anyway, get back to the whole thing. Great with the sports, great, but the most important thing that I'm going to take out of all this is every time I called my mother and she wanted to see her brother, as well as Aunt Helen Mary wanted to see her brother, Uncle John wanted to see his brother, and Aunt Mary wanted to see his brother. That's the most important thing, is family, all right? So once again, Uncle Eddie, thank you for everything, but most importantly, thank you for all you've given to our family. And I'm just going to this last little thing. On my mother's 75th birthday, Uncle Eddie gave my mother a gift that when I talked to her on the phone, made her cry. All right? Thank you for making my mother cry. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. That was awesome. Thank you. All right. Laura's coming up.
Just need a little girl power.
This woman looks so young, I'm telling you. When I met her 30 years ago, it's the same girl right there, baby. Peter.
30, more than 30 years ago. I just, on the human side, because everyone talks about Jim as a great boss and a great leader, but on the human side, he also cared about a lot of the people who worked for him. And not only did Peter work for Jim, but I also had that honor. Peter and I started dating, and we were dating, and we were dating, and 2 years later, we're still dating.
Oh, Danny boy.
Peter's a very decisive guy. So Jim says, I want two of you, come out, we'll have a drink. We go to the Pig and Whistle, no surprise. We're sitting there, and Peter needed a little shove, and I have to say, he turned to Peter and he goes, what is wrong with you? You need to marry this woman, and she needs to have some kids. What's wrong with you? And I have to say, it was like a couple weeks later we got engaged.
My dad's a matchmaker. Yeah, baby. Good. All right. There's no one else? Thank you all for coming and enjoy some more food and drink. Thanks for being here. Love you guys.